Welcome to Born or Made, the podcast that dives deep into the heart of success and identity. Are the traits that define us as leaders ingrained from birth, or are they carved out throughout our experiences? Join your host, Anne-Marie LaTulip, as we ask these questions to some of the most insightful and inspiring entrepreneurs of our time. Each episode, we explore their journeys, the decisions that shaped them, and how they've molded their own paths to success. So whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply curious about the interplay between nature and nurture in professional growth, you're in the right place. Get ready for compelling stories, transformative insights, and a new perspective on what it really takes to make it in the world of entrepreneurship.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Born or Made podcast. I'm your host, Anne-Marie LaTulip, and with me today, I have the amazing Theresa Byrne. I had to reach out to her to ask her to be on this podcast because she does something that is so interesting to me and something that actually really hits home. And she talks about, not only does she talk about, but she helps people find their inner warrior and defeat their inner bully, so to say. And so I cannot wait to dive into this topic. So Theresa, welcome.
Thank you.
Like I said, I know what you do. I know what you're about. Do you mind taking a few minutes? And for anyone that might not, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to be, the inner bully defeater?
Sure. Well, and to be honest, I have a TED Talk that it kind of hit a nerve. It has over 500,000 views, and it's all about the dangers of your inner bully. How that was born or made, you can decide, was that I had the opportunity to do a TEDx, and the thought process was, what is the one thing I want people to know before I die? What is the one thing that is so important for me to share with the world if I ever had to leave? And by leave, I had a car accident I had a near-death experience. So there was a shot at leaving. So after that, everything was like, how do I need to leave the world? Like, how do I need to be in the world so that people can change or shift? And that one thing was, I wanted people to understand that when we beat ourselves up, we create the same chemicals that we have when we're in toxic relationships with others. Cortisol, norepinephrine. It is like this. Your brain doesn't know the difference between the toxic between your ears and the toxic externally. And that was the most important thing for me to share. Why? Because I have been on a mission to help people deal with the external bully and the internal bully for pretty much all my life, really.
Wow. That's incredible. So I have so much that I want to ask you, but first you mentioned the car accident that you were in. Now, prior to the car accident, were you still doing this like life work with others, helping people with okay, so that wasn't a new thing after the car accident.
No, I owned a martial arts. I founded a martial arts and fitness studio, and a long time ago. I was a very new female entrepreneur, and this was like, oh gosh, 2000. And there weren't a lot of us. It actually might have been like late 1990s. Anyway, yeah, so my mission was to help people find that light within them and that power and that strength. And I was using martial arts and self-defense and sort of enrichment programs to get there. And a lot of it was focused on external, right? Like, how do we deal with all the people in our lives that just, they're not good for us. They don't work for us.
Yeah.
And then I started seeing how often people wouldn't defend themselves because they were afraid, they don't love conflict, or even how they beat themselves up. And so I really had to start working that angle to help people get where they wanted to go.
That's so true. And I think sometimes the things that we tell ourselves are worse than anyone else could say, right? I think you hit on that actually in your TED Talk. I remember you were talking about that young boy, which I'd love to talk about more. But first, I want to ask you, how did you get started in the whole martial arts? Did you have an experience in your life that made you want to be stronger in that way, self-defense?
Yes. And I'll answer that in two ways. The first time I remember defending another kid, I think I was in fourth grade. And these kids on the playground were picking on this slower kid. And I, without knowing anything about how to defend anyone, including myself, I jump in and I'm like, you leave him alone. Like, stop it.
Good
You
for
want
you.
to go to him, you got to go through. I'm like, what am I, some guy, like a little gangster? I don't even know where that came from. I'm in fourth grade. No one has ever taught me that, but there was something inside of me. And now I would call it the mama bear, the papa bear, that was like, you do not pick on people. You do not do this. And I threw myself in front of that kid and defended them. And that was the first time that I remember stepping in to protecting someone else from bullies.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That is so cool. So you yourself were never bullied,
So
or
I
were you?
wasn't. No, I really wasn't. I got made fun of, but it was never bullying. I got teased, but it was never bullying.
Yeah.
Uh, my my family structure. My father is probably, he's a very negative person, very angry, and I can smile and say it now. Thanks therapy and thank you. I went through therapy in college. I studied social work, but I, at the point where I was a kid, I was very defensive. I was very protective of my sibling, my brother, and my mom. And I would prefer that he got mad at me than them. It was harder for me to watch them getting in trouble than me. Like I could step in and I could take it. And I learned boundaries at an early age, certain kinds of boundaries, like especially anger, bullies, that kind of thing. I learned that at an early age. But I think that's part of the whole like nature nurture. I don't know. I think that inner warrior in me, I don't think I could like that was like pulled me into.
Hmm.
I had to defend that kid. But the other skills, like the boundaries, I think that was learned. I think that was what I had to do. It doesn't
Yeah.
surprise me now that I teach other people about it, but
So yeah, right. So
right.
so prior to owning your own martial arts studio, like let's talk about younger Theresa, maybe high school, after high school. Were you always an entrepreneur, or did you have some sort of a 9 to 5 job, or what was that like?
I remember my first epiphany was when I was 13 years old and I realized, oh my gosh. So I was always concerned, like, did I say the wrong thing? Did I do the wrong thing to other people? Right. Like I was always very conscious of trying to be accepted or
Mhm.
fitting in, girl, I never did. And I got done trying to fit in. And I have this joke. We spend 18 years of our life trying to fit in, and then the rest of it showing how we stand out. Right.
Right.
So I was trying to fit in and I realized if I'm thinking all this stuff in my head, so is everyone else. Like if I'm having a conversation with you, you're not thinking about how I'm messing up, or I should have used a different word. You're thinking about you. And I was like, he's doing that. And then I realized in that moment, whatever I did in the world, I wanted to help people access their potential. I wanted to help them unlock that, whatever that was, that best in them.
So
And
yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so speaking to the name of the show, Born or Made, the idea, are we born with these entrepreneurial, great, like you said, I look at it kind of outcast mindsets because I never really quite fit in that 9 to 5. Like I felt like a bird in a cage, get me out of here. So it sounds like it was a little
Same.
bit of both for you,
Same.
maybe.
And I did. I mean, you're in college, right? Well, I was in college and I graduated. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I went to work for other people, and I sucked at it. And you talked about, some of the jobs that you had, like on stage, and you're like, I was really good until I had to, and I was okay at it, but I was selling computer chip level components. I was not good at it. And then I was doing marketing and outside sales. None of these things fed my soul. And when the opportunity came to run a martial arts school, it was like this. I want to make a difference. I want to make my life have meant something. I want to help other people. Those 9 to 5 jobs were not quite doing it.
No.
Um, and I said yes, took about 10 seconds before I was like, yeah, I'll do that.
And
Yes.
that is so cool because there's the parallel there between teaching kids how to defend themselves to maybe external bullies,
Mhm.
right? And then now you've kind of, I'm I'm assuming you're not doing martial arts anymore, or maybe you are, but now
I,
you're
I, I am.
also
I am, but
okay.
still, I'm not, I
But
don't know
yeah,
the school anymore.
so now you're also teaching people how to defend themselves from their inner bully, which is so true because I'll tell you, I struggled with eating disorders and all of that whole body image stuff when I was young.
Mhm.
And still some body image issues, right? Because what you just said hit home to me when you said, I'm not thinking about what you say wrong, right? I'm thinking about what I say wrong. And it's the same thing with the body image issue. It's like nobody's walking around thinking, oh my goodness, Anne Marie, you are so fat, right? But we do it to ourselves, right? So can you talk about that a little bit? Do you
Mm,
I remember the boy you talked about in your TED Talk had a body image issue, correct? So that's something you
yes.
deal with as well?
So I filmed a documentary for ABC Family, and it was all about kids who were dealing with weight issues. They were being bullied because of the issues. So we did a casting call, and over 200 families showed up. And we realized, well, we couldn't just work with the kids. We needed to work with families. So we opened up a group, and I started teaching them about mindset and their body and movement and how to feel good in your body, right? Like if you've always felt disempowered, how do you know what it feels like to feel powerful? How do you know what it feels like to knock a bag over? Like the boy in the TED Talk, Jeremy.
Yeah.
The kid was 250 pounds at 10 years old. And the kid, like, when you should have seen him light up. When he felt powerful, he realized that he'd been internalizing all of this, this disempowerment or these feelings of not enough or comparison. And then when he started externalizing it, he felt better about himself. And I remember another little girl I was teaching at I taught at a gifted kids school. I created programs, and her mother walked up to me and she said, I need to talk to you about what Alicia said. And I was like, oh God, what was it? What happened? And she said, she came up to me, Alicia came up to me and looked at me. She's like, Mom, does my butt make me look powerful? And her mom is like, yes. Where did you get that? I'm like, Master T says that, look at you. That was powerful. Look at your body. You're strong and powerful. So I started raising kids who were like, oh yeah, my butt makes me look powerful.
Oh, that's so awesome. Talk to me about would you say that at that age, that a documentary that you did, was
Mhm.
it more women or girls than boys? Because it's interesting to hear about, boys with body image issues. I'm sure I know it happens, but you don't hear about it as much.
I think they're not as verbal about talking about it, but yeah, kids who are fat. There was a study done several years ago, and the question was, would you rather lose an arm or be overweight? And these were to grade schoolers. 95% said I'd rather lose an arm than be overweight. 95. Imagine that in our society, being overweight or being fat or being heavier is worse than losing a limb.
That,
But that's the mindset. And so these kids are getting bullied based on how they look. And there's not a lot of options for how to deal with it or what to do about it. And
yeah,
I don't think the boys are sharing as much. I don't think the boys are comfortable talking
yeah,
about it as much.
I could imagine. And the other thing I'll say is, to me, I was bullied in school, but to me, it was considering what is possible now with social media to bully each other, kids.
Mm.
If that had been the case back when I was in school, like I might be a different person right now. I can't imagine these kids being bullied from so many different places, every time they turn on their phone, right?
And I think it's pervasive because, like, let's say you're bullied at school, it's at school, and you might come home and feel bad about yourself. Social media is right here. It
Yeah,
is in your bedroom. It is with you all the time.
that's exactly what I mean.
You
Yeah,
can't
I
get away
mean,
from it.
it just must be so hard for these kids today. I mean, it was hard for me back then, but now it's crazy. So I want to pivot just for a minute, if you don't mind,
Go ahead.
because I read that you are also a hypnotherapist. Is that
I am.
true? Oh my God. I'm so excited. Can you talk about this? I'm fascinated by that.
So a lot of my work has been focused on the way that we show up and the actions that we take and what works, what doesn't work. And those are all physical actions. Like, what can we do? I'm gonna create a practice. I'm gonna do this. And I can give people all those guides. Well, it always made me so curious, like, what is the thing where people will purposefully sabotage themselves? Like, what is that about? And I have a girlfriend that once said, I'll do anything to lose weight except diet and exercise. And right. It was such a perfect example. But behind the scenes, there's this whole other level. So there's our conscious mind, and then there's that subconscious. And unless we know what it's telling us and how it's driving us, and our subconscious mind, I think, is really to help keep us safe. It's to help keep us. But sometimes, let's say you're a woman and you're looking for love. And I'll often tell clients, unless it's the UPS guy or the Amazon guy, you're not going to meet him because you're not getting out of your house, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
people are saying, I'm committed to this and I'm going to do that. But then your behaviors don't match up. Our behaviors don't match up. And when I see that, I know there's a counter intention. There's something going on behind the scenes that needs to be seen, that needs to be heard. And
Wow.
that's where hypnotherapy kind of.
So, like I said, this fascinates me because I've often thought about going to hypnotherapy for body image issues, right?
Oh my gosh, you can change so much. And it's so fast. That's the other thing I find. I love therapy and I love consulting and coaching and mentoring, and hypnotherapy is even faster.
So, how does the process work? I mean, okay, first, actually, let me ask this first. Does it work for everyone? Does everyone have the ability to go into that hypnotic state?
Oh, well, I think that's probably the first thing to talk about. You don't have to be in a hypnotic state.
Oh, okay.
I know, right?
No, I'm thinking like the, you know.
Right? No. So imagine, have you ever been in a daydream and you're like, all of a sudden you have kind of a realization outside of this daydream?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
That can be like hypnotherapy. Creative visualization is hypnotherapy. Having somebody like gently guide you in a meditation, that's hypnotherapy. So really, what I'll do is I'll talk to my clients, what do you want? And where are you with that? Like what's happening right now? And then I'll ask them if they're okay to kind of go in and let's just see what's in there. And they can speak back to me and I'll ask their body for motions. Like, is this yes? Is this no? And we go into a relaxed state and guide them into a comfortable place and then let their subconscious show them what it needs to show them.
Wow. It's so interesting because I imagine some people might be reluctant to sort of let themselves get into that relaxed state, right?
Or a
Because
trance, right? Like that sounds scary, like
right.
out of control. I wouldn't do that either. Yeah, I
Well,
wouldn't.
right. Have you seen that guy? I don't know his name. I can't think of it, but he's a super famous hypnotizer. I don't know if I'd call him a hypnotherapist, but he makes people do things on stage. Have you seen this guy?
Well, I don't know. I might have.
Yeah, like he'll put people on stage.
Is he English or is
I
he
think he does. I think he is British. Yeah,
British? So stage hypnotherapy is one version of what we
yeah,
do. And those people are awake, right? They're not like they're not, and now you will
yeah,
walk.
right, right.
They're a little awake and in a very relaxed state. And yeah, so stage hypnotherapy is a thing.
It's
I
just
don't usually make somebody jump up and do anything unless they
or
want to.
act like a lamb or a horse or whatever.
Nope.
Like that's the kind of stuff he does. But
Yeah.
yeah, so when people go into that state after they come back to their regular state, do they remember what you
Usually,
talked about?
you almost always. So we do it in a way where the subconscious is relaxed and open and feels safe, and then we'll share whatever it wants to share with you. So we honor that part of ourselves because each of us has a controlling part of ourselves.
Mhm.
Each of us has a skeptic part of ourselves, and we honor all those pieces. And I was working with a woman a couple weeks ago who was trying to remember. She had a traumatic event, but she's forgotten everything right before the 8 months of her life before the event. And her brain did it so that she wouldn't remember that traumatic event. Like it helped her be able to move forward from the event. But now she's like, I want to know what happened. So we went in and we just talked to her subconscious and asked her mind to show her what she was missing. She's like, well, I don't know if I'm making it up or not, but turns out she wasn't. She asked some friends from high school if that had actually happened, and it had. So you can remember whatever it's safe and right for you.
Wow.
A lot of people are like, oh my gosh, I saw the weirdest thing, or I was in the coolest place, or I saw this image of me I wouldn't have expected. Yeah, your subconscious is your friend, but we forget to listen to it because we don't know how to speak to it. Subconscious mind speaks in pictures and words.
Okay.
It's the words we tell ourselves about ourselves and the world.
Right. Okay. Do you,
Hypnotherapy, we go in and we look at those pictures and words.
I love it. I love that. So here's kind of a random question, but
Go
do
ahead.
you feel that the subconscious shows itself via dream?
I think it can. Not everybody remembers their dreams. I think it can for certain
Yeah.
people. I think they can. Some people are lucid dreamers. So
Yeah, me too. I
you
am
already,
like, yeah,
yeah. And your subconscious will be like, well, I don't know. Why am I doing this weird thing? Why am I an air traffic controller? I don't
yeah,
know.
right, right. I
Um,
mean, not to go down a tangent about dreams, but I often wondered that because my dreams are so vivid. They're like epic movies every single night, but there's so random. So I'm like, what is this? Is my subconscious trying to tell me something here? Like, so
it
I'm
might
just
be. It
curious.
absolutely might be. I always tell people like it's not the letter of law. It's the what is the dream? How does it feel? What are you noticing feelings wise about that dream? It's not necessarily that you decided that you were a chicken or a duck in your dream. Like, I mean, I've had random dreams like, why is everyone wearing the same hat? Like, oh, this is the weirdest dream I've ever had. And there are those, I remember writing something down once and it was like, we should all be twins. Like, I woke up and I'm like, why did I think that was important? Because you have this like insight. Everyone, we should all be twins. I don't even remember what I thought was important about that.
That's
But
so, I had a dream. I've had many crazy dreams, but I had a dream one night that I had carrots for legs. My legs were carrots.
exactly. Like, and the reason for what?
What does that mean?
Well, there are tons of books to tell you exactly what it means, but I'm always like the letter of the law, right?
Right.
What was the feeling about it? And
Yeah, that's
you
so
might have been
funny.
like, my legs are weird.
Right? Oh, baby. Yeah, that makes sense. That's so weird. Oh my goodness. Okay. So you do a lot of different things. Like we were just talking about martial arts, we were talking about hypnotherapy. Can you talk about what else you help people with? Because I know that you really help people in so many ways.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm really big. So there are a lot of great. I am a certified coach, but I more use the word mentor or trainer because I do so much more than just sit there and go, tell me how that feels. And I love coaches. I think they're fantastic. And did you know that we are like 500,000 coaches and therapists short from what the mental health requirements are right now? Yeah, ever
Really?
since COVID, yeah, we're really in a huge shortage. If you ever need to find a therapist or a good coach, it seems like there's so many, but really, anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
so I coach and I consult, I mentor, and I like to help people with whatever's stuck, whatever's stopping them, because that's truly the key to going forward, to having the life that we love. And here's what I mean by that. A lot of my work is about helping people to unstick their energy. When you're not beating yourself up, when you're not in an unhealthy or toxic relationship, when you're not a people pleaser all the time, when you're not overdoing, you actually have enough energy in your life. You wake up and you feel good. And do you know what I'm saying? Like there's
Yeah.
nothing draining you or holding you down. And so I'm really about helping people look for those things. Do you have sabotaging patterns? Are you beating yourself up? Are there relationship issues that you're having? And work a lot on boundaries because boundaries are the way that, so boundaries are funny. I studied social work in college and we had like this tiny little part of a semester on boundaries. And basically what we learned is like, it's the no. And that like, it's just your no. Well, I'm thinking, and as a martial artist, like, there's so much more to it. There's everything else happening. What do I want? How do I feel? What don't I want? The no is just an external boundary to someone else. What about my internal boundaries? What about the boundaries I need to set with my thinking?
Interesting. Yeah.
So I like to teach boundaries from the inside out because then it helps us get rid of some of those sabotaging patterns and take our energy back, really.
And that all goes along with the inner bully, like we were talking about earlier. So those self-sabotaging habits could be the inner bully. But I'm curious, do some people maybe think, does the inner bully sort of serve as a protector sometimes, and people are reluctant to
Mhm.
sort of get rid of that aspect?
think of it this way. The inner bully is really, it's there to keep us. So much like our subconscious keeps us safe, that inner bully doesn't want us to grow or go outside of the norm or the comfort zone. And usually it will show up when you are stepping outside. Let's say you're dating and you're on a first date. Woo! Will the inner bully show up and think all the things that are wrong with you? Let's say you're going to a job interview. Whoa, the inner bully will tell you all the things. And not only does it like tell you what's wrong, it will also bring all this evidentiary support of all the things you've ever messed up in your entire life.
Right.
And it is a way of keeping us how controlled. If that makes any sense. So that means don't be too big, don't speak too loud. You're too much, you're not enough. Those are the kinds of things that the inner bully will do to
Yeah.
us.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe also prevent us from getting like putting ourselves out there and maybe getting rejected or hurt in some way. Is that part of
Don't
it?
do that. Don't do a webinar because
Right.
don't make a podcast because
Nobody's going to come.
like
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a fear of rejection. It's all of our fears rolled up into one voice. The issue is we think that voice is our brains. We actually think it's a part of us. It's not. It's cultural programming.
Wow. So if you can talk a little bit about how you defeat that, because that's a big task to undertake, especially if it's something that's been programmed for so long, right? Like, can you talk a little bit about how you do that?
Absolutely. So the first thing that I will say is we have to become aware of it,
Mhm.
right? You've got to know that it's not you. You've got to realize, whoa, my inner bully is so showing up today. So, and I would call that, I have an acronym called POW, which is kind of like, empower, right? And
Yeah.
so the P would be present to what is it saying? When does it show up? I started noticing if I thought I made a mistake, oh, my inner bully will just beat me up. Or if I messed something up, then it would beat me up. Or if I was going to try something new, like I had to get present to, oh, wow, look, these are the ways it shows up. And so you get present and you observe it. So when you think it's your voice, let's say your inner bully is yelling at you because I don't know, because you gained a few pounds over COVID or whatever, right? Like and it's all on you about that. And you're like, I'm fat, I'm fat, I'm fat, or whatever the inner bully is saying. Well, when you hear it as you, it's like the inner you is like, ah, ah. But if you can take it away and go, whoa, my inner bully is, oh, on me today. Observe. So the O is observe. Give it a name. I've had people call it Cruella, Mean Girls, Mean Mommy, Dr. Dread, or Judge Dread.
Yeah.
Like you can name it whatever you want. Judge Judy.
Judge Judy.
Because that inner bully, man, is going to be, it's like, but the minute we can take it out of our heads, then we're observing it. And then the W is like, wait, just breathe, just calm. So get present, hear what it's saying, observe yourself from outside of it, and then breathe. Take a pause, just wait. Just wait. So oftentimes we think that if I feel unhappy, I got to go right to happiness, right? And there's something wrong with me if I'm not manifesting instant happiness. You know what? Just be in that pause, wait. And maybe you'll just feel a little bit more peaceful, a little bit neutral. That is a beautiful place to be, that waiting place. None of us are comfortable. We like to know what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
But when you're moving away from the inner bully, like just pause, just let it go. And you can tell yourself something powerful if you want. In my TED Talk, I say, I've got this. I will sometimes say, I don't know how many people in my head, we've got this. Don't know why that works. We got this. We got this. And then it's like I got a whole team in my head like cheering me on. We got this.
I love that. You can't see it because there's a glare on it, but the sign behind me says, I got this.
I love that.
I live by that,
I love that.
That is so cool. And so you train sort of the inner warrior to rise up and, like I said earlier, defeat the inner bully. Is that sort of how you visualize it?
Yeah, in a way, we're in usually one of three places. I'll just radically simplify this. Okay.
Okay.
We are in a state that we do not prefer. Anxiety, depression, worry, upset, frustration. I call it DOA, drained, overwhelmed, and anxious, right? Like we are DOA.
Oh yeah.
Or we're in like this awesome part of ourselves. We're like going for it. We feel good. We are in the flow. We're in the zone. And then there's this middle section. It's like this neutral space. It's like this, just anytime you move a car forward, you're going back or you're going forward, but there's this neutral space. So the inner warrior is that part of us that is like, yes, I am on this. I feel good. I'm connecting. I'm having synergy. And in the TED Talk, I talk about how our bodies heal naturally. We don't have to think about, if I get a cut, I don't have to think really hard, like, all right, guys, let's go in there. My body will do that. And that's the inner worry. It's that same thing that made me want to defend that little boy. It was like this defense DNA. And that's our inner warrior. It's the part of us that keeps us healthy. It's the part of us that makes us thirsty because we haven't had enough water today. It's the part of us that's like, I feel like I need to move. It's that backbone of us. It's like that part of us that has our back. And the inner bully is the part of us that wants us to stay small and safe and out of fear and danger. And
yep.
And then the subconscious is around here going, I don't know how to manage all these pieces, but I'm going to do my best, right? I'm going to try. I'm going to get this together. I'm going to try.
Yeah. Oh, that's such an interesting visual because I can really like just see that picture, and I think it's interesting because you mentioned that you at home felt protective, responsible to protect your brother and your mom. And I'm guessing that's probably why that came out in school to protect that classmate.
I am absolutely assuming that is true, that there is something in me that is protective. Think of it this way. All of our brains are wired differently. There's a bunch of stuff right now on people pleasers, and it feels almost shaming, right? Like there's something wrong with you. Guess what? It's kind of cool to see other people happy. And our brains get a cool, like a dopamine or a serotonin hit when that happens. We're wired that way. What then can occur is if we overgive or bend over backwards, then we go into the unhappy side where we're beating ourselves up. We're mad at the other people.
Right.
And so part of our wiring is based on those things, based on how we function best.
Yeah. And that's so interesting. Just the point alone that everybody's brain is wired differently. It's so hard to imagine that. We kind of touched on this a little bit, but it's like understanding that not everybody thinks the way that I think. That one thing is so hard to understand.
But it's brilliant.
Right?
And when you're making marketing and when you're doing funnels, you have to think about what the group thinks. Like, you then have to go like, well, what do most people think?
What is everyone else going to? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
so that's a skill.
And that's actually a challenge. It's funny you bring that up because that's actually a challenge with some of my clients is that they'll read something and think, well, that's not how I would read it. And I have to convey that, well, it doesn't matter how you would read it, right? You're not the buyer here, so that's an interesting point, and it's so true.
Well, think about how many, and I see this a lot in my industry. We know what people need. I know people need boundaries, but they may not sign up for a session about boundaries, but they will sign up for a session to have more energy or to feel better or to find the love of their life or to make a bunch more money, right? Like they want those things. But internally, the mentor, the consultant, whatever you want to call us, we're like, yeah, we're going to need boundaries. But it's not flashy. It's not sexy. So.
Yeah, I get that. It's like, you got to do the work, right? So yeah. Can we talk a little bit? It's just kind of a pivot, but I also read that you do a little bit of NLP. Is that okay? This another thing. All of this stuff fascinates me, but NLP for anyone that's listening that might not know what NLP is. Do you mind taking a minute, explain that, and then tell me about what you're doing with it?
Yeah, no, I love it. And I want to also preface this. Everything I do is under the umbrella of being your most powerful self, right?
Right.
Like activating your inner power. And so when I see things that drain people's power, I start learning that. Neurolinguistic programming, NLP, is the words that we use when we talk to ourselves. So hypnotherapy helps us to change or shift programming and recode, rewire, recode. I love that part of it. And then NLP is also the words that we use. It is the way that we imagine things. They're very, very similar. NLP and hypnotherapy are very similar. For example, if you keep telling yourself negative words, you start to believe them at some point. And if you continually use these words, or, oh my gosh, here's my favorite example. How many people do you hear that are busy? It is a constant, right?
Yeah.
And words have this energy. So I'll usually say, yeah, my life is really full right now, or crazy good, or crazy insane awesome, or crazy full. I try to stay away from the word busy. So neurolinguistic programming is a way to access the way we speak to ourselves about ourselves and the world, and also start adjusting it.
Right.
They're both very cool.
And NLP is used a lot in it's actually, I think it's starting to be more popular in people who are selling or influencing other people. Yeah.
Yeah, marketing language. You'll see it a lot in motivation slash or manipulation. Um, I would think, yeah, anybody who's in professional sales are probably training in NLP, because certain words can elicit certain emotions.
Right.
And my thing was always like, well, I'm going to learn this so that people don't manipulate me. And certain phrases, certain ideas. I also study predatorial mindset. So think about, yeah, well, you know what a bully is. Now imagine the worst of the worst. Well, I study those mindsets and I train so that I can help other people understand what a predator might do, how a predator might get them, might hook them.
Oh, now do you mean like an online predator or any type of
Any predator. Predator mindsets are also why someone who's a predator is wired differently. Someone who's a bully might have been bullied, and then they get kind of they get a hit, a brain hit from hurting someone else. Like if they feel disempowered or less powerful, hurting someone else makes them feel stronger, but they always go after someone weak. There are similarities with predators, and I'm talking, like assailants, like the worst of the worst.
right.
There are similar mindsets. Bullies may have more empathy. Predators typically don't have empathy, and they're always looking for certain things. They are looking for people who are good targets. They are looking for submissives. They are not looking for a fight. Um, just a different level of wiring. And it's funny, every time I teach a self-defense class, people go, what? Who thinks like that? And I'm like, I'm glad you don't. You
Right.
would be a predator. Like, it won't make sense to you because this ain't your brain. Your
uh,
brain is not wired in this way.
yeah, again, back to that whole wiring, and again, even back to the born or made nature or nurture, right? The whole thing sort of ties together, which is so interesting.
And
Now,
I don't want to say again, this is really simplified, but imagine that we have people pleasers who enjoy creating pleasure and happiness in others. A bully or a predator, I think bullies are probably easier to work with. Predators are usually more in the psychopathy and a lot more mental issues. But imagine that
right.
they get that same dopamine serotonin hit from harm. Again, you're like, what? I can't even.
No,
Just don't think of that.
yeah. Wow. Now, are you able to instantly spot that type of mindset when you initially talk to somebody?
After it'll take a minute, and it's so funny that you say that. I have people say something along the lines of, "Well, if I ever run into," I'm like, "Yeah, it ain't if, it's when." We will run across narcissists, sociopaths, people with all different levels of psychopathy, and they might just feel uncomfortable to us. But oftentimes, like a narcissistic, someone with narcissistic NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, they can be very big and gregarious and
Yeah.
charming. And honestly, many serial killers had big personalities, were politicians. People were attracted to them.
Yeah.
There is an element of, but it's in the conversation. It's in the eye. I will give you one hint.
Yeah.
Somebody that lacks empathy, if they're either narcissistic, sociopathic, or like focused on predation, if you yawn, they won't yawn back.
Interesting. Wow. What about I heard something about like looking up to the left or something like that. Is that or maybe
That's a different, you're accessing different level. You know, are you making something up? Or are you accessing different memories?
that's what it is. That's what it is. Okay.
So if like if someone in the FBI or somebody was, if someone was asking you questions and they were trained, they might go, okay, she's looking up to the left, she's making it up, or up to the right, and she's accessing memory. And I can't remember which. I'd have to look at before
Yeah,
I spoke on it. But yeah, it's memory or making something up.
things like that are so cool.
I know, right? And the whole mirror neuron, the yawning thing too. I was like, oh, I'm going to
Yeah,
yawn around everybody I know. I want to see if they yawn back.
I know, right? That is so interesting. Oh my goodness. Wow. So where are you from, by the way?
Denver. I'm in Colorado.
You born and raised in Colorado?
No, I was an army kid and I was born overseas in Germany and we moved here, say fourth grade when I started having to defend other kids because it was different. It was different growing up in Europe than it was.
I bet. Wow. So you were there for almost 9 years, yeah?
Yeah, yeah, we were there
Wow.
for a long time.
What do you mind just I'm just curious. Do you mind just talking about that a little bit? Like what it's like to transition from Europe to America at 9 years old?
Well, it was weird. And again, I mentioned fitting in because in in other states or in other countries, there wasn't this focus on labels or and I get to the States and it's like, you know, these are the best genes and this is like these labels that I'm like, I don't really matter. The other thing I noticed, and I'm sure it's probably not prevalent, but there was a let if you say something and you mirror that. What I found in the States were a lot of bullying behaviors, but it was passive aggressive. It would be you pretend to be someone's friend and then you say mean things about them behind your back.
Mm,
I didn't see that as much, but I mean, also I was younger. If you didn't like somebody, you didn't like them, and you just didn't hang out with them. Like it was so black and white. It was so much easier. And I got to the States, and there was a lot more subterfuge and a lot more, you know, bullying behavior, kind of mean kid behavior, and yeah, like that. And I had never seen that, which is why I was like, this is not okay. So much judgment and labeling, and it was
yeah,
different.
that totally makes sense now when you say that. Wow. So did you
Yeah.
speak German?
I did. I learned German. I had a German nanny, but I don't remember all of it. I can remember some of the words, but I
Yeah.
keep going. I have Duolingo. Oh, by the way, so there are certain things you can do when you start getting into anxiety. And one of my favorite things to do is like distract myself with Duolingo or an online chess game or something can actually stop you because anxiety starts coming from here. And we
Mm,
have to either distract this or move this
mm.
to get out of it. So it's, you know, total tangent, but yeah, I have Duolingo German and you just reminded me I need to get back on that.
That no, I'd love to just chat about that for a second because I
Yeah,
I absolutely struggle with anxiety. And what happens to
let's
me,
talk about it.
yes. Oh my God. So recently, I would say within maybe the past 4 years, right? I started getting like super, I've always been anxious, but I started really getting bad anxiety. And along with that, at this lovely age, I started getting high blood pressure,
Oh,
right?
wow.
So every time my anxiety would rise, so would my blood pressure. And then so would my anxiety because I'm now nervous about my blood pressure. And it was just, there was a time when it was just like debilitating, like honestly, these panic attacks. And so thankfully I've worked through that and everything's great now. But if I had known certain tricks like that back then, it would have been so helpful. So
Well,
yeah,
and
I'd love to talk about it.
that's the other piece is that you feel out of control. And then the anxiety takes over. So anxiety is a dysregulation of your environment, your feelings, your thoughts, or sometimes even just brain chemistry or body chemistry. I had a brain injury, and sometimes my body would just shoot cortisol or adrenaline, and I'd be like, oh, and I'd suddenly have a panic attack, and I wasn't even sure what I was panicking about.
Oh yeah.
And so that can happen. The secret of all that is learning how to calm it. First, recognize it. So we either get hot, we get tension, like you might start feeling a tingling. I was working with a 19-year-old girl the other day, and she feels pins and needles when it's starting. She feels pins and needles and she starts getting really hot. So starting to recognize, what does my system do when I get anxious? How do I do anxiety? So think of anxiety like a play. How do I do anxiety? And your body will do it. When you catch it, calming behaviors. So it might be, and usually there's too much stimulus as well in an anxious anxiety. It's like there's too much going on. There's too many things. So like some way of quieting or some way of stopping. I'll give you one cue from Positive Intelligence. If you can start this, rub your fingertips together with such exquisite attention that you can feel your thumbprints or your fingerprints. And just see if you can do that.
Yeah.
About 10 seconds of this will stop the adrenal flush going through your body. It'll take a while for the rest of the adrenaline to move through your body, and you can move it through using your voice or movement. But this or this can help calm the body. I've also seen people use, one of my favorites for panic attack is count threes. So it's like, all right, tell me 3 things that you smell right now. I actually don't smell anything. 3 things that you hear right now.
Mhm.
3 things that you see right now. 3 things that you feel right now. So you get into your senses, and that will work if you're in the midst of a panic attack. 3 things you hear, 3 things you smell, 3 things you taste, 3 things you feel. And it starts to, because anxiety is happening here, we have to bring ourselves back to the present moment in our body.
Right. And what were you saying? You were saying lingo? What was that?
Oh, Duolingo
Oh, Duolingo, yeah.
is an app. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, it's an app. Oh, okay.
It's an app. Oh, yeah, it's really cool. It's an app, and you get all these points and celebrations when you learn languages. You can learn any language you want on Duolingo. It's the
Oh, no
coolest little
kidding.
app.
I've always wanted to learn French. My family is French, so I'm going to look that up.
Totally. And it's cute. It's cute too. It's a fun little app. I like it. And it distracts your brain. So if you're not having a panic attack, what I just gave you was panic.
Yeah.
But if you're not having a panic attack and you're starting to be anxious, you're getting extra energy. Well, I like to sometimes rampage clean or rage clean. That will work if I've got that extra energy. Or if it's like just starting, I can distract myself by doing something else and then breathing and calming myself.
Right.
So you have to kind of know the anxiety that's going to show up, the character, the Elmo of anxiety.
You know about me.
I do know about you.
I love that. Oh my goodness. Well, this is awesome. We're getting kind of close to the end here, but at the end of every podcast, I always ask like a few random questions.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, just to kind of get to know you better. Okay, ready?
I'm ready.
All right. If you had the opportunity to go to space and walk on the moon, would you take that opportunity?
Yes.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
You're daring. I wouldn't.
Oh,
I'd be scared.
I might be scared, but I'm doing it anyway.
I love that. I love that. All right. If you could have dinner with anyone in the world, alive or dead,
Einstein.
Who?
Einstein.
Einstein. Wow. Why? Why Einstein?
He had first of all, he was completely dorky. And I love dorky. He had so many theories and scientific theorems that are so philosophical in nature. After my accident, I sucked at time, like months, years, time. And I remember, I'll often quote Einstein. I'm like, he said time was relative. It sure is. Like he had so many things that were ahead of him in thought that are just long lasting. It would be Einstein.
Yeah, that would be a great dinner, wouldn't it?
Who did you pick? Who do you say?
Oh goodness, no one's ever asked me back.
Who are these people?
You know, it's a close toss up, I think, between Jesus,
Yeah.
and Neil Diamond.
Okay. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Jesus and Neil Diamond.
No, I mean Jesus would probably win, but I love Neil Diamond. I've loved Neil Diamond since I was a little kid.
I love that. And I think Jesus is a freaking rock star too. So
Right? Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
Imagine that dinner.
I know, right?
Are you an animal lover?
Yes.
Do you have dogs?
I don't. I had cats, and I tend to be the place that cats will go for their the last saloon. If they're on their last 5, 6 years, not lives. People will be like, "Hey, will you take care of this cat?" Yes. So I'm like the last life fosterer of
Oh, that's awesome.
cats. We've always had cats.
Awesome. I have dogs, but I always had cats as kids. I love
Did
yeah,
you?
all
Interesting.
animals. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, and then last, what book has inspired you most in your life? Doesn't necessarily have to be about business, but any book.
Well, what's your answer? Oh, I think of mine.
Uh, .com Secrets, Russell Brunson.
Oh, very
Actually,
cool.
the whole series was, I'm such a funnel dork, but yeah, I'm a funnel hacker. Russell Brunson, all of his books are amazing in terms of marketing and stuff. So,
Well, he's the Mr. ClickFunnels, so
right?
yeah. Uh, what book would I say? Probably Positive Intelligence. So, it is a book about the sage and the saboteur, and I read it after I did the inner bully and the inner warrior, and I was like, "Whoa, this guy is a Stanford educated neuroscience lecturer, and he's saying the same stuff." And like this exercise comes from Positive Intelligence
Oh, no
too.
kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. There's another book, and now I can't think of it. Is it on my shelf?
I know. I like look behind me too.
I think it's called Seven Levels of Communication or something. Oh, okay. I'm gonna write that one down.
Yeah, this is a good one. I love that. Is that the ones where like it's like, how's the weather? It's fine. 7 levels of intimacy.
Oh no, that actually
No,
that sounds good. But no, this is called
good one.
it's like a business book, but it's about 7 levels of communication, I think it's called, and it's really good. Like
Oh, I'm
teaches
gonna
you
write
how to
that one.
communicate with people. It's really, really good. I like the biz books and self-healing books and things like that. So yeah. Wow.
7 levels of communication. I'll look it up.
Yeah, definitely. All
Cool.
right. Well, what's next for you, Theresa? Do you have anything big and bright on the horizon?
I am creating new workshops. I do a lot of keynote speaking and conferences, and I'm creating new workshops in how to clear out energetic blocks and sabotage. And these are going to business people. Like I am teaching all of this, which could go into the woo side, but I keep it practical and I don't go too far into the woo. So I've got a bunch of conferences coming up that I'm
Awesome.
so excited, and I'm creating content for those. So that's what
Awesome.
I'm excited.
And do you have something that my audience can take advantage of?
Yes, I would
Yes,
like to have them. I think I gave the link.
you did. I'll put it in the show notes. Yeah.
Perfect. So, are you sabotaging your happiness? And it's a quick checklist, and then there's a worksheet to kind of like, oh yeah, I think I probably do that thing. Oh yeah, I might be doing that. And if you notice that those are things that are bothering you about you, there's a chance to work with me if
Awesome.
you'd like. Yeah.
And
Do you
if
want more
people would
info?
like to work with you, of course, I'll put it in the show notes.
Thank
But
you.
if people would like to work with you, how can they find you?
TheresaByrne.com.
Oh, that's easy enough.
I know.
All right, Teresa, this was such an amazing conversation. I might have to have you on for part two because I still have questions.
Please, I love this stuff. This is like my jam. We talked about like when your inner warrior show. This is like this synergy and that feel and that collaborative energy. That is our inner warriors, like communicating the
Right?
highest, best of ourselves. Yes,
I love that. I'm going to name my inner warrior.
totally. What is her name? Is it a her? I shouldn't
Oh, yeah,
gender.
it's definitely a her.
I wonder what
Yeah,
it is.
I don't know. I'm going to have to think about that. I'll let you know.
I want to know.
Okay.
I love it.
All
Thank you so
right,
much for doing this.
Teresa, you have a great holiday weekend, and I'm so thankful you came on.
Thank you.